All right, so I think we can start. It's 1 o'clock now. So let me formally introduce artist John Day. Um, so this artist talk is in conjunction with our current virtual exhibition at Amelie A. Wallace Gallery .org. If you haven't checked out the virtual exhibition, I recommend to do that. I'm doing multiple roles here. I'm admitting while I'm introducing. So, okay, so hi everyone. Thank you very much for making time to join us today. So, that's pretty good turnout today. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Eric. There's a link to the exhibition if you haven't visited there yet. All right, so since 1980, before I begin, I would like to say thank you to John for preparing this exhibition. And he's been always the best artist to cooperate with me. And I would like to give a thanks to the Dean of School of Arts and Sciences, Amanda Fritzken, who sponsored this event. Since 1980, John Day's work considered natural environment. His practice deploys installation, assemblage, and drawing to focus on the human relationship to nature and changes we have wrought upon the natural world. Observing and collecting the images and memories of natural materials art, such as tree branches, vines, other natural elements that he combines with other art materials such as photographs, drawings, paintings, field notes, and video. He's been combining these materials to create his work. Day has been devoting weeks, sometimes even months, exploring off trails in nature, nature preserves to find the materials that will create immersive experience of the wilderness that demands.
Hyewon, excuse me.
Yes.
We're getting a sound and audio issue. I think someone needs to mute their mic. Richard, yeah, there we go. Okay, let's make sure everybody's muted. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everybody can hear. I don't hear any noises.
I hear some feedback.
It's the speaker. Do you think it's my speaker?
Maybe.
I will try not to make any noise. So John Day has graduated from Cornell University in 1967 with a BFA in Fine Arts, where he studied with Jim Dine and Robert Richenberg, who had a decisive influence on his artistic development. Following Peace Corps service in the Philippines, he lived in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Connecticut, and began observing the landscape, which led to the development of paintings based on farmland and forest settings. He's going to explain the early work if we have enough time at the end. After moving to New York City in 1986, Day continued his work with a series of paintings based on travels to wilderness preserves in the Northeast. These mediums to large-scale paintings are primarily abstract. They have been exhibited in the New York area. Day has also made large and small-scale installations in forests, preserves, and galleries in New York from materials gathered from local area. I'm not going to list all the places, works that he have shown, but I would like to mention one installation which we at SUNY Old Westbury Wallace Gallery in 2010, John Day has collected nearly 8,000 sticks, twigs, and tree branches over several months on campus. And with those materials, he installed installation piece called Heliotrope. And this installation is more like art environment where people could walk inside rather than looking from outside. So now we would like to welcome John Day, and please welcome John Day. And we will begin with a talk on artworks on display at Wallace Gallery website, and followed by my brief talk on environmental art while John Day could take a little break. And you're welcome to interrupt and ask the questions anytime, okay? So, all right, so I will have you present your talk now, John.
Thank you, Hyewon, and thanks for everyone who is dropping by. I just want to extend thanks to Hyewon for her interest in and support of my work over the past number of years. I'm thankful for that as well. So basically, she gave you an overview of what I'm about, and essentially, I'm concerned with a direct personal experience in wilderness, as well as what's happening in wilderness and natural areas around the world. Some of my work is political, but much of it is essentially about that existential relationship between me or you and nature or wilderness. So I find nature we have a fragile, conflicted relationship with nature, and my work tends to talk about or journeying within, experiencing and confronting wilderness. So I think also, despite all our science, biology, botany, etc., we never really truly know nature. There's always a mystery involved. There's always something we cannot know, just as we may never truly know ourselves. So this is what interests me in these spaces. What I'm going to do is show you a selection of work on the website that you may have already seen, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the works. And you can ask me questions anytime, or we can do questions at the end as well. So I'm going to now share my screen here. And I'm going to the website, and I'm going to click on installation and talk about Spiral Journey. This is a recent work just done late last year, and it's about 6 feet diameter, composed of tree branches, as well as 6 video players. And the spiral form is something that's always interested me. It's a universal form. You see it in galaxies and hurricanes, in shell forms, microorganisms. So it's a very universal form. I use it to kind of depict a journey which could be circular. It could be somewhere where we get lost, or we're going in circles in the woods. So there's that kind of aspect to it. And it suggests also the points of view of you traveling. The videos show walking forward, walking backwards, looking up, looking down to the trail, going from side to side. And there's an audio track of feet walking in the woods with other sounds. So it's kind of a multi-point of view piece as well. Here are some images that show some close-ups of the work. And there are also things like trail markers and signs that you encounter in the woods, which I thought were important. So I'm going to show you some of the video at this point. This is a short video. It's also on the website, but it gives you an idea of the movement in the piece. You're going to see each video is about 10 minutes long with clips of all of these segments. You can hear my feet walking at this point, and you can see close-ups of trails of movement backwards and forwards, etc. I'll skip ahead a little bit here. So it's zooming into some detail. There are some trails, there are some steps. All of this I thought was relevant to someone who is encountering the unknown. And here's something I'm walking forward. All this footage was taken from many parks in the Northeast, in New York, Massachusetts, some in Maine, as well as upstate, Adirondacks, etc. I'll talk a little later about where I get my material, how long it takes to obtain it. So there's a trail sign. This was up in the Adirondacks, and it shows a kind of intersection where you have different choices. Where are you going to go? How many miles it's going to take you to get there? This is all kind of a sense of adventure, as well as feeling that you're discovering something. This is a pan of the entire piece, showing you the spiral. So if you see the 6 players at once, it gives you a kind of a multi-dimensional impression of the environment. Sometimes I wandered off the trail and into the woods just to get a sense of being sort of lost. So that gives you a basic idea of this piece. Here are some mosquitoes in the soundtrack and a rock formation that you find these along the trail many times. Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you another piece. This is called Gate. Let me go back to the website for a moment. I'm skipping back and forth between the website and the videos. See if I can find it in a moment. Whoops, what did I do? I went too far. Okay, this piece is called Gate. This was done in 2019, and it's essentially a structure with many different images mounted on the branches. The photographs, again, were taken all these different locations, and they show what goes on in nature. There is growth, regeneration, decay, and destruction, but it's all happening at the same time. And I wanted to give viewers a sense of immersion in and an opening into a forest space. So I'm going to describe this a little more with the video. Okay, this is called Gate. As I said, I'm just going to keep talking as I play this. The material I get is usually from local parks. It's not live branches. It's either dead or from fallen trees. So I try to collect things that are not live. There's an important element in weaving in this piece. The pictures are mounted on canvas and tied and woven, as you can see, in and among the branch forms. So I wanted to really merge the images with the wood as much as possible. And again, it's about exploring, journeying, and discovering, and also one's relationship with wilderness. The connectors you see here, the linear forms, are also images that are put on canvas. They are roots, vines, trees, etc., and serve to connect with the work. They can also be read as streams or trails that are moving through wilderness. When I was working on this piece, before the linear elements were put on, it seemed unresolved. It seemed like something was needed to finish the work. And so I came up with this idea of the connectors, which took a long time to really figure out and resolve. So the other element are these pictures that are wrapped around the branches. They're actually tied around it so that they curl around the branches themselves. It's another way of trying to connect with the wood, with the image. And you can see some of the close-ups of these images, which I repurpose in many works. I have a large library of works, of pictures that I repurpose in different ways in these works. Once you start tying the structure, it's very sturdy. It remains very strong. That was my experience with the Hyewon's gallery in 2010. The structure was very, very strong. It did not fall or even collapse. This wood was taken, a lot of it, from the Nassau County Museum of Art grounds. The groundskeeper had harvested a lot of saplings, and he was very generous. He allowed me to collect it for this piece. There you see an old fallen log, moss on roots. All of this material captivates me a great deal, so it's an essential element in wonder and exploration. Okay, you can see some of the weaving from the side view. You can see how it moves in and out of the structure, which was intentional. Here's some more close-ups. These pictures come from many different locations all over the Northeast, as well as Long Island. Okay. Okay. I see in the chat we have some questions or something. Let me just read the chat for a moment. Oh, I'm getting some compliments. All right, thank you. Okay, we will keep going here. I'm going to now go to a piece called Helix. One moment, please. Okay, I'm gonna go back here. This piece is called Helix and was done in 2017 at a small gallery in Long Island. It's immersive. In other words, you can walk inside the work. The scheme is also a spiral, and on the floor, instead of on the wall, it's a spiral where you can walk inside to the center of this piece. So it's basically the same issue about encountering many images of forest details. There are several hundred of these printed on both sides, hung on the work. And again, there's the same tying that's going on and the same profusion of images. We are now at the center of the work, and it's a column of branches in the middle. So as you walk through it, you're basically surrounded by these images, and hopefully you will think about your own relationship with nature, and then you can walk back outside. I'm going to show you some of the footage of this piece also. There's a story connected with this, which I will tell you later. This is also a link on the website. It's the piece, this whole video is about 17 minutes, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But there's a wind sound in the background. I'm just going to skip around to show you different parts of the work. The images were based on a helix pattern similar to what happens in DNA. So I wanted that kind of a structure to the images. So you get kind of a helix formation in the pictures. The piece took about 12 days to install. I had help from students, some of which were from Westbury. Some of the students from Westbury have helped me on various installations. I'm very grateful for that. So here we are walking inside the work, looking around. You can get an idea of how close you are to the pictures. You're moving around inside essentially a structure with tree branches. I'll just show a little more of this as we move around. I'm going to try to get to the center of the work. Right, so on your left is pretty much the close to the center of this piece. Right, this is the center right here. So you're looking at roots, vines, trees, rocks, streams, all kinds of different details. I'm much more interested in intimate details than I am of panoramas. So, you know, I'm a lot different from the Hudson River School, which is, as you know, very dramatic panoramas. I'm much more interested in intimate details of the forest. There's a backstory to this piece, which I will tell you. I was actually scheduled to exhibit this at Dowling College 2 years before it went up here. And a month before I was going to open or install, the college closed due to financial problems. So I had to basically try to figure out another place to show it. And it wound up here at a small gallery. All the material, this is basically ephemeral work because once it's finished, the wood is essentially recycled. It's At Westbury, for example, it was all cut up and chipped into mulch, I believe. So the wood it's recycled, it's not stored anywhere. Except I've kept some of it for other works. Okay, so that gives you an idea of Helix. Okay, let's see, where I'm going to go back to the website. I'm looking at these chat room. Let's see if I can answer some of these, what's going on. Okay, someone said, how did you make the decision to mount the screens on the surface of the spiral? Okay, it's actually somewhat it's inside the branch formation. It's not outside. There's not a lot of space in this piece, so I also wanted the videos to be visible instead of being obscured. So that's why I made them visible. Okay, I'm going to go back to the website. I guess everybody can see what I'm doing here, I hope. Okay, I've done Helix. Let's see, what else am I going to show you? Okay, I'm going to show you some of the other pieces, not all of them. I don't have video for this. This is called Reliquary. It was shown at the Great Neck Art Center back somewhere in 2013. It's a similar structure, but it's not a spiral. And the interesting part about this work is that viewers had to take images from the back wall and tie them onto the structure. So it's an interactive work. Everything you see here was tied on by visitors. And the reliquary idea was it defined as a place where things are kept in remembrance or memories. So it's that kind of aspect where I was trying to get to storage of memories from all over the Northeast. These pictures, again, are taken from everywhere. So it's this kind of repository of memories that I was interested in. Here's a close-up that shows you some of the same pictures that I've used before. Here's a side view with pictures that have been tied on. This piece is about 15 feet by 12 feet high. More images that were tied on. These were also printed on both sides. And here you can see, you can walk inside it and look in the inside as well as what's going on there. There's a backstory to this as well. The branches you see here were actually stored in a patio of a restaurant that was downstairs from this gallery. So there was about 500 branches piled up on this patio. And the fire inspector made a visit and he basically freaked out. So the owner managed to calm him down. So I was able to continue. The other issue was one of the parks in Great Neck, I was taking branches out and a man came up to me, he was very angry and said, "What are you doing taking these out of the woods?" "I'm the parks commissioner." And I had to explain that I had permission from the gallery to do this and his office knew about it. So I managed to escape that as well. But these things happen, you know, when you're dealing with installations. Okay, let me.
We have a very interesting question from student at SUNY Old Westbury, Isabel Barcaza. I will read the question. Regarding your creative process, did you come up with the concepts as you're walking the trails, or did it come from an idea and then logistically structured with the trails in mind?
Right, that's a good question. Some of these installations were site-specific. In other words, they were done in response to a certain location. The piece in Hyewon's gallery was actually developed according to the room and the light in the room. So that was a site-specific work. So other times I get ideas and I want to just do them somehow. Let me think of something here. Let me go back to whoops, let me go back. Whoops, excuse me. Gate, for example, was I keep sketchbooks and I develop ideas. And this was going to be just a structure that was going on a wall. So the idea was developed not for a specific space. It was just done in response to the idea. However, some other pieces like Portal, for example, which I will talk about next, this was done in response to a site. There was a river, a balustrade here, and I knew I wanted to do something in response to this site, this environment. So it's both, actually.
We have another question.
Okay.
Lauren Scott. How do the sculptures age while on display? And how does the aging process affect the presentation of the display?
Good question. Many of the large installations are done for maybe a month or even 2 months, and then they're taken down. So they don't really age that much. This piece was up for 3 days. It's very fragile. So if it was up for maybe 2 weeks, it probably would have collapsed. I was lucky that there was no storm coming through that weekend. The piece in, let me think. Earlier works I've done in the woods do tend to degrade. I had a piece done in Mutton Town Preserve. It was up for a little over a month, but I had to continuously fix it because branches fell down. I had to go back and put them back up. So these things are fragile. They don't last that long as opposed to metal sculpture or wood sculpture that's indoors. So this piece was in response to a festival called the Dumbo Arts Festival, where hundreds of artists were participating. This is called a portal. It's an idea of an opening to a distant shore, in this case, Manhattan, and kind of framing the skyline of this view, this vista. You can see here the scale. There were hundreds of people walking through this area. It got a very good response. Basically, it was put up in 3 days and then it lasted for 3 days. So the other issue is the noise. The trains going over the Manhattan Bridge were very loud. So that was continuously happening. But you also get the river, and there's the carousel in the background. So it's a very active, open space. What else can I tell you about this? The other thought I had about doing this work was, what did the shoreline look like before New York City, 400, 500 years ago? What was there? So I was thinking maybe there were branches, there were trees, there were forested along the shoreline at some point. There is a backstory to this piece also. This location was a very good site for wedding photographers. And as I did this piece, there must have been 6 wedding parties with brides in full dress with tuxedos and all this, and bridesmaids. They loved to pose in front of this piece. And they would actually get up on my ladder and pose while I was trying to construct the work. So it was a constant interaction with wedding parties and installation, which was very interesting, to say the least. Okay. That's about it for installation. I'm going to show you some other works in assemblage. This piece is called Target, which has another political content, and it has to deal with what's happening in the world with deforestation and by development, agriculture, logging, industrialization. I'm very concerned about the loss of habitat in the world, so this piece had to do with that. I'll show you a video of this as well. So the work is basically a collage on canvas with industrial images and also wilderness images. They were all torn and mounted on canvas and then covered with layers of acrylic paint, acrylic glazes with a heavy impasto. So you see all the brush strokes. And you can see a very dramatic contrast between the industrial stuff and the wilderness pictures. Most of the industrial work I photographed around Brooklyn and Long Island, Queens, industrial areas or factory industrial development, etc. So the work is essentially a comment on Jasper Johns' targets, but with a very different content. And hopefully we'll get people to think about what's happening. I think essentially art has a role to play, but it's limited in that much of the real action is going to happen with legislation, with reinventing industry, with developing new solutions. So we keep carbon out of the atmosphere. There's all kinds of stuff that has to happen. But I think art can play a role in creating awareness. Some artists get directly involved. They actually do direct action, which I have not done essentially.
John, you have a question from Florence Lynch.
Okay.
I will read the question for you. As I looked at the outdoor piece, I can envision it as a more permanent piece. Is that something you've ever considered?
Well, good question. The pieces I've done outside were usually in nature preserves. So when I get permission to do these, it's with an understanding it will be a limited amount of time. The work I do is somewhat fragile, so it would involve a rather continuous maintenance. So that is a challenge with these works. If you go to a place like Storm King Art Center, you will see a lot of outdoor works, but they tend to be much more sturdy. Even Andy Goldsworthy, who does a lot of very impermanent work, has installed a stonework there. So if you're going to do something that's long-term, it has to really withstand the elements. My work tends to be rather ephemeral. But the indoor work could definitely be up for a long time. The piece you saw, Gate, has been in my studio for 1.5 years, so it's essentially okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop this. Let's see if there are any more questions. Oh, Jeffrey has to leave. Thanks, Jeffrey, for participating. Jeffrey is the director of the National Wildlife Refuge Association. And thanks to have him attend. Okay, where am I? I'm going to go back to the website. Okay, forest quilt. Let me show you something here first. I'm not going to talk about this, but this is a piece I did 5 years or so ago. It's a collection of digital images with overlay of acrylic and line. The color scheme is rather subdued. It has to do with maybe colors in the fall and nature and so forth. However, the one I'm going to talk about was based on American pieced quilts, some of which are extremely colorful. So I wanted to try more intense color with that kind of idea. So these are close-ups of nature images overlaid with washes of paint, and then a second layer with textures and line and other kinds of applications such as monoprint or scraping and drip and so forth. So the idea was to get a real interaction of color, complementary colors in the work. The same thing happened with this piece as with Gabe. I did these square images and something did not seem quite resolved. So I needed to do this overlay, which is all color prints mounted on canvas. There was no paint involved. And it was taken from a branch formation and then placed on top of the piece. So it seemed to give me the interaction that I wanted. And this was probably the most technically challenging work I've ever done because all of these panels had to be sewn together by hand with hemp cord. So it was very time consuming, but it was a very adventuresome process. Okay, just two more and then I'm going to go until 2, I think, and then we'll break for Hyewon. This piece is called Veiled. It was done a few years ago. It's images printed on 3 layers of silk. And then text was added. So you can see the other layers, but they are obscured, which was part of the intent, sort of as you are moving through a wilderness space. I'm going to show you the video here momentarily. Okay, so this is a short video that shows some of the detail. This work was printed commercially from large Photoshop files, and I am essentially trying to get the idea of things you encounter in the woods, and they go back, they recede in the distance, you have memories of them, maybe you keep them in your mind for a while, and then they become less defined. The text was from actual field notes of experiences I had, which are things about not sure where I'm going, hearing things, I'm not sure what animal it was, and things that involve a kind of mystery. So there are linear forms as well as large shapes as well. The notes, so it's basically fragments of my encounters as a wanderer with memories of being lost, of danger, and revelation. An example of one of the text is right here. A sound like something large moving in the thicket could be heard. I could not see what it was in the dense foliage. It moved again with a breathing sound, invisible in the forest growth. It could have been a bear, it could have been a dog. I never saw it. So that's the kind of sense of the unknown that really interests me. The silk is very translucent in this case, so you can actually see the images behind. I was inspired by Rauschenberg's Hoarfrost series, where he did stenciled images on some kind of material where you could see through it. Okay. I'm going to go to another piece on this assemblage. This piece is called Erased Forest. Again, it has a political content. It has to do with the disappearance of forest areas and the decline of habitat in the world. This is a collage with color images that were sanded down so you could barely see the pictures themselves. Again, they're the same pictures I use in many other pieces, but with a different approach, different content. And so what happened is the color changed radically in the work as well. So it's a statement about erasing things. This is a work on paper, a collage on paper. I'll show you just one more assemblage work. Called Blowdown. This work was created in response to the Superstorm Sandy in 2012, where, excuse me, forested areas were devastated. I mean, you know, the coastline was also, and the cities were devastated, but the forest, the preserves were just destroyed. And again, it's not a very happy piece at all, but I'll show you a video of this as well with some of the sound effects. It's essentially a construction of debris with a player of storm damage with a soundtrack. And the grayness in the work, I was inspired by Guernica, which also was a gray color scheme. And it was a very strong way to convey tragedy. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to show you parts of this. There's a very loud soundtrack. This was actual footage of storm damage in Queens parks and Nassau County parks, where you can see what's happening with the trees. They were just broken like matchsticks, and tremendous destruction from this hurricane. I'm just skipping ahead.
And this work was included in our 2010 exhibition.
Right, right. I'm using audio from hurricanes and storms. So what you're seeing here really happened. So what's interesting here is that in the 8 years or 9 years since this happened, the forest has largely regenerated. If you go back in to these spaces, there is a lot of change in the woods, but the woods have essentially regenerated. A lot of it has regenerated. Okay, that is assemblage. So I'm just going to show a few of the drawings, and then we'll take a break. I have about a few more minutes. Okay, let's see. Let me go to share screen. Okay, the drawings I've basically worked on continuously throughout my career, and they tend to incorporate all kinds of imagery and lots of layering and different kinds of media. They're mixed media, charcoal, pastel, graphite, etc. And they are all intuitive. They basically are they're built up intuitively. There's no plan or design in these works. They evolve as they develop. So except for this one, which I will explain. So for example, number 9 was done just recently, and it's all a combination of forms, shapes, some of the same issues in the installations about exploration and confrontation and self-discovery in wilderness. So the work is mostly graphite and oil pastel. And they're about 36 by 30. There's a lot of layering. It takes a lot of time and looking and going back and forth, which is similar to a lot of painting process as well. This work was a large wall work, and it was an idea that I wanted to scatter things all over a wall with different things like photographs, drawing directly on the wall, drawing on vellum as well as paper, and so forth. So it's a complex work, but also the same kind of energy, or at least engagement, as installation as well. So there's a very elaborate drawing on vellum here combined with photographs, and you can see topo lines from maps on the wall as well, drawn in pencil. So there are lots of elements, linear and shape also. This is a drawing of a pencil drawing on vellum with a charcoal drawing with images on vellum that have been made with oil paint. And the work is about, I don't know, 9 by 9 feet. Oh, that's it. Okay. So these are the, this work can be reassembled, you know, and put up somewhere. I'll just show a couple more. This work was done in '08 and is a work combining notes, field notes, like you saw in the veil piece. And so it's about my encounters and different kinds of techniques, drawing techniques combined in the same work, combine different kinds of media. And you can see some of the text, and I'm using topo lines in the drawings and very detailed drawings combined with very spontaneous linear elements. There's also collage in this work. Okay. One other thing I'll show you is this. This is called hike drawing. I was trying to figure out what it would be like to make a drawing from hikes, different hikes in the woods. So these are all observations and combined with forms. Also my footprints here in the mud down below. So you can see a kind of interaction of text with shape. Here's one of the, it says, around a bend in the trail, a distant lake became visible beyond the trees. It formed a long light blue oval, the same color of the sky, and was obscured by the foliage of the forest. So these are some of the observations.
You have some very enthusiastic responses to your drawings, John.
Oh, good, thank you. So the drawings continue as well. So let me go out of this. Okay, I'm looking at the comments. Right, thank you for your comments, and we'll save all your comments, by the way. Excellent. So I think perhaps I've been talking for a while. Hyewon, would you like to take over for a little while?
Yes, so John will take a little break. So I will give you a brief presentation on earth art, land art, environmental art that John were influenced by. So while I'm doing this presentation, you are also welcome to take a break. If you needed to use the bathroom, go right ahead, and I will give a very, very basic survey level presentation. So, okay, so because I have some students here for them mostly, but all right, so let me begin my presentation.
Hyewon, how long do you expect to talk?
10 minutes, okay? Just
okay.
Come back in 10 minutes, and 10 after 2, we will begin John's presentation on his early work. So if you are interested in listening to his early work, you can take a 10-minute break, or if you want to listen to me, you are very much welcome to join me.
Okay.
Stay on, yes. Okay, so I would like to begin with the terminologies, terms. I think many of us are probably confused about these terms. So I wanted to kind of define the terms a little bit. So environmental arts is a range of artistic practices encompassing both historical approaches to nature in art, so-called earthworks, earth art, land art that emerged in the late 1960s, and also more recent and politically motivated types of works represented by ecological art, eco art. So environmental art encompass both camps, basically. So, but often many artists will use these terms interchangeably. They tended to be, environmental art tended to be interdisciplinary. The difference between environmental art and earthworks, early earthworks and land art, in my mind, is that most of the earthworks and land art were done site-specifically in remote areas, places where most people can have a hard time accessing, whereas the term environmental art tended to encompass more wide range of artwork that were done in not only in rural areas, but also in urban spaces, urban and industrial locations. So some of the key points about earthworks and earth art and land art. Let's go over those basics, okay? So it is attack on the idea of art as a portable object. Before earth art and land art emerged, the idea of art was something you house in a gallery space or museum space. Artists who associated with the earth art and land art rejected this idea and challenged, and they went out to the fields and used earth as the very material for their work. And most of all of it is a site specific. So it requires a special trip to those sites. It's almost like a pilgrimage to get there. It's very, very hard to get to those works. And it's about a space. It's experiencing the landscape, experiencing the space the artist made. And it's also a reflection of a geological time, and often symbolizing the time of ancient past. And it's associating with the late 60s radical political climate, and it's a rejection of establishments. They no longer needed to exhibit their work in institutions, museums and galleries, although ironically, most of the works are presented as photographs and documents within gallery and museum spaces. They are neither could exhibit nor sell. And so in some, it challenged the location, material, and size, and temporal existence of a work of art. So artists such as Michael Heiser, major artists of earth art include artists such as Michael Heiser, whose tools were not brushes and canvases, but his tools were bulldozers and excavator and those heavy machinery. So for this work, Displaced the Replaced Mass, which he had done in 1969, he explored large force of nature. It's obviously site specific. He brought rocks from the high Sierras back down to their original elevation in the Nevada desert. It's a comment on mountain building process of geological evolution. So he has made a series of work, Displaced and Replaced Mass. And after that work, his most well-known piece, earthwork, is a double negative. It's still, you can still visit this site, which is located in Nevada desert. So it was constructed by him in the Nevada desert in 1969, which remains one of the few still extant examples of what are commonly referred as earthworks or land art or environmental sculpture. So it consists of two long straight trenches, 30 feet wide and 50 feet deep, cut into the tabletop of a Mormon mesa, displacing 240,000 tons of desert sandstone. So the cuts face each other across an indentation, so forming a continuous image. So it's an aerial view when you so even when you actually go into this side, it's enormous, it's encompassing you. It is a giant space. It's creating negative space between these two lines. So that's why it's called the negative space. Eric said, so he's saying that this is even, this is also in danger of losing because of the natural, process of weather effect and so on. So another major work that established Earth's art is this work by Walter de Maria, the New York Earth Room in 1977, which consisted of 250 cubic yards of black soil, and it's 22 inches deep, and it covered 3,600 square foot area, and the weight of the soil was 280,000 pounds. So you can imagine, I don't know how many of you have visited this room. It's appealing to the senses, our senses, smell and moisture, and also muting effect. It absorbs the noise, sound in the space. So this is a very romantic piece. It's the idea of imprisoning landscape in enclosed urban space, and also displacing and then dispositioning landscape within the urban space. In some ways, it's antithetical to the experience of nature. The same artist, Walter de Maria's most well-known piece, The Lightning Field, which is installed in New Mexico near Quamado, which involves stainless steel poles. Average height is 20 feet and 7.5 inches. And the overall space that it encompasses is 5,280 feet by 3,300 feet. So Walter de Maria was very interested in measurement, the sense of a measurement and systems of ordering and measurements. So it's measuring 1 meter by 1 kilometer. It is a grid of 400 stainless steel poles. It's arranged in 16 rows of 25,220 feet apart. So getting there is a very difficult trip. So scholars have compared that process of travel to these land art sites as a pilgrimage. It's a pilgrimage through the lost landscape to the site, which is an important aspect of experience, the work itself. So visitors, once you get there, you are vulnerable in the middle of nowhere. And it's allowing us to experience the power of nature. As you can see, the lightning is visible in this photograph. And you can see the play of lightning in the sky. And most land art and earthworks in the US have been preserved by DIA Foundation. And so I don't think we have a lot of time, but I would like to, I mean, obviously Spiral Jetty, everybody probably knows about it, but I wanted to mention one important exhibition that is related to John Day personally. John Day went to school at Cornell University. In 1969, shortly after he graduated from Cornell University, there was this exhibition, landmark exhibition Earth Arts. It was curated by guest curator Willoughby Sharp, and it was exhibited at the Andrew Dixon White Museum of Art. And total 9 artists exhibited their work there. Walter de Maria, Michael Heiser were also participated, but their names were not included in the catalog. There were logistic problems with their work, so I collected some images of the catalog. So they defined and they contributed to defining the Earth's art with this exhibition. For mounting this exhibition, many people participated in installation. So on the left, that is work by Hans Hake's Grass Grows. So materials like this. I mean, earthwork, by the way, that's something you do site-specifically. This exhibition included both site-specific and works within the gallery space. So here on the left, we have the curator and the director of the museum watering on Hans Hake's work, Grass Grows. And on the right, we have Dennis Oppenheim with a student back then, student at Cornell, Gordon Matter Clark, who's working on accumulation cut, which was just cutting 100-foot trench perpendicular to a waterfall in Ithaca outside campus. So these are images from the catalog. And there was a Robert Smithson also participated in the exhibition Mirror Displacement. There is installation shots. And I found this image very humorous and interesting. So typical with the University Art Gallery, faculty give an assignment to students, and here is a student. Writing a 2-page critique is not easy for Christine Fuller. So yeah, so imagine writing about this exhibition in 1969. That might have been I'm sure it was a challenge. So by 70s, the Earth art, which is avant-garde, experimental arts, kind of entered the mind of everybody. So this is a cartoon that I found in the New Yorker from June 25th, 1979. Here, what's the caption here? You call this a mere bagatelle? It's the cartoon that demonstrates the the effect of Earth's art in the minds of people. And then just the couple of more works. I'm sorry, I think I'll just be very, very brief. Alan Sunfist, who's a pioneering artist of environmental art, created time landscape in the corner of LaGuardia Place and West Houston Street in Greenwich Village. He planted the pre-colonial plants in New York City. So it's a still existing work in New York City. So next time you're there, pay attention. And then another pioneering artist of environmental art is Mary Miss, who created this piece, Ropes and Shore in Ward's Island in New York, using rope and he just basically marking the shore at the line, waterfront line, to create a kind of a line for people to walk around, and this kind of brought the awareness of the land itself. And also most importantly, Agnes Dean's Whitfield on Confrontation from 1982 and Battery Park Landfill. For this work, she dug out all the dirt. It required many trucks to gorge out these the dirt and garbage and so on. And then she planted wheat in that site. So this is the aerial view of the site. Now, after that, this site has become commercial and so on. So that's it for now, but we out of time, in interest of time, I'm going to hand back the stage to virtual space to John. So these are some of the works are what I'm sure John has more things to say, but we would love to see your early work.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. So I'm back. So I'm going to thank you, Hyewon, for the very interesting presentation. And I'm going to continue a little bit with the early work. I wish I'd seen that wheat field. I was in Connecticut at the time, but I didn't see it. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to go to a PowerPoint. And show you some of the early work I've done, how I got started in this direction. Here we go. Everybody see this, I hope? Can people see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is a painting I did in 1975 when I was in Pennsylvania, and I was looking at farmland and corn cribs, which are structures that store corn. And I was fascinated by the color and just the structure. So I made this painting. And then a few years later in Hartford, I made an actual structure with real corn, which I harvested from local fields. It's all dried out. So it was kind of a pivotal piece for me because I was thinking about transferring from painting to actual natural material. This piece was never shown, it was very heavy. So I worked with corn for a while. This is my studio in Hartford, and these are corn stalks, again inspired by the fields in Ohio, but the stalks are very sturdy. They're quite strong, and you can make constructions with them. And this material was available. It was in and around Hartford in the farms, so I just used it. This is another view of the piece from the other end. It was all just tied with twine. This is another piece done with corn. The corn, when dried, is very permanent. It doesn't really rot away because it's all dried out. This is based on the fences that are seen in farmland, some of the structures of the fences with the corn that's basically filling up this sculpture. This was exhibited once in Hartford. This is something called corn curve, which is tied up in cheesecloth. I just wrapped corn in a pieces of cheesecloth and hung it along the window ledge as well. I was just experimenting with this material. Paintings I did at this time were based on corrals and farmland back in the center of the country. This is a piece called Corral. These are large acrylic 6 by 8 feet. This is another double corral, which is just an imaginary work with a different treatment of the surface. So I was thinking about farmland and et cetera material. This was done earlier in '75 called Ohio Fence. And when you travel in the car, you see all kinds of vistas of land and farmland and corn and fences, and I tried to make a piece out of this. But this is what I was interested in at the time. In Connecticut, this is the first large-scale installation I did in a grove north of Hartford in a park preserve called a Grove Circle. It's about 100 feet by 80 feet. I took fallen branches or fallen trees. I didn't cut anything live, and I strung them up in a kind of loose circular formation around this grove, which was all beautiful birches. You can see the piece moving down the hill, and everything was tied on with twine. This is another part of it where I had to tie 2 birches together and then tie it up along any support I could find. This work was exhibited in a museum in Hartford. This is called Corn Scaffold. It's a detail, but again, the stalks are very sturdy, so you can build something like this. And I was interested again in the interaction of the windows with the piece. and the structure, which sort of relates to things I'm doing now. This was something called metacomic voices. These relics were found in the woods, very old pieces of stumps and that's tree parts. And then I collected them and made a piece with connectors as well. I was interested by some of the art, the things that were going on at the time, like earth art, Smithson's work, Walter de Maria's work in the New York Earth Room, Agnes Dennis, which I missed the wheat field, but I was aware of her. A fellow student called Michael Singer, who has done very important work, and I followed his work and was probably influenced by it. Alan Sonfest, I saw the landscape many times in the city. I just was amazed by it. I was doing this work before Andy Goldsworthy was known, so I obviously discovered him and related to it. I also like people like Richard Long, who did these amazing pieces out of, he made walks and he just developed these spontaneous works with stone and wood in various distant locales. I was very impressed by Long as well. This is a piece in Muttontown Preserve, Long Island, called Grove Spiral. It moves up from the ground and everything you see horizontal is the work. It spirals up to about a height of 15 feet. It's about 80 feet long. This is a view from above, and you can see the spiral as well. Again, I had permission from the ground, from the preserve to do this, and it was up for about 2 months, and then it was all taken down. The woods were left as before. I've done works that are kind of spontaneous. This is a series of altered landscape works where in the White Mountains, I just went and tied fallen trees to other standing trees to build something. This is all experimental. This is a piece done in Leeds Pond Preserve, Port Washington. There were 8 of these forms based on forms I saw in the woods made of weeds or branches or vines and left on the ground near a science museum in Port Washington. This piece was done at Powell House it was a retreat in northern New York, and it was done in the woods, having to do with bundles of branches tied to standing trees, and it was left for a long time. It was actually left for almost 2 years. And relating to another comment, by the time I returned, it was pretty much destroyed after 2 years. So that's what nature does. This is a piece, Camouflaged Manhole in Long Island City. I was interested in just changing or altering urban structures. So I made a armature with sewed on leaves and placed it there very quickly. I just took a photograph and then took the armature away. But I wanted to make a kind of a contrast. And this piece was done in a gallery in the College of New Rochelle with vines and harvested branches from Muttontown. It's called Symbiosis, commenting on the relationship of vines with trees, which is primarily destructive to trees. This work is somewhat interactive. It's called Reforestation, and it had to do with reforesting urban spaces, or at least symbolically doing this. And viewers were asked to tie on pictures over industrial shots over the center images. So it's an audience participation work. This gives you an idea of what was leading up to 2010. So my path has been pretty much focused on environment, what I see in wilderness, and how to deal with it on a personal level. So that's that's my journey. And people have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So we have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any questions or comments, Lisa Grastrom had some comments about your work.
Oh yes, I had a question here, wait a minute. Did I intentionally angle the branches to mirror the slant of the property? What happened here was there was a sloping hill that led to a pond, and I was interested in the viewpoint that is looking down towards the pond. So the branches were angled toward the pond, and it was a V formation. So it actually came together in a point leading to this pond. Any other questions? Do I see nature as a teacher? Definitely, absolutely. Okay, I don't know questions. Let's see more questions. For the students, I just had a couple of comments for the students. One thing I guess I tell students, not that I have taught, but something is going to take hold of you in your life that will be really decisive. Any kind of art practice, it could be painting, it could be dance, it could be music, performance. Something's going to grab you and shake you by the shoulders and won't let go. And it's going to tell you something about where you should go with your life. It happened to me. It may happen at any time, but it's something that will inspire you. The other thing I want to tell you is the woods around the college buildings in Westbury are wonderful. They're a huge forest. And I encourage you to go out there and just walk around. There are trails out there, and you know, it's a great place to just explore. So that's an invitation for you.
All right, so anybody else? The last comment or question? If not, Lorenzo's virtual clap. So thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, John, for preparing wonderful artists to talk. I think many of us, all of us learned so much from you, and it was a very inspiring talk. And so we have a lot of compliments here.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you
Good
very
luck.
much. The talk will be, it has been recorded. It'll be
okay
on our website. If you have missed, or if you would like to recommend the talk to anybody, let them know.
Great. Thank you, Hyewon. We'll talk soon.